Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. What is the natural definition of sensorality? So, continuing our linguistics, looking to show that direct iteration of irreducible syllability. Again, what is at the forefront of my mind is sensorality is form. We have things, those occupy space, or they have geometry, is the all-encompassing word that everybody knows. You go to math class, you're a math researcher, and you really want to do a number theory proof with a geometric basis or something. But geometry is this word that encapsulates all things shape. And so this form is irreducible. Geometry is irreducible. And so that is what we're going through, is this syllability is geometric, and looking to show the direct iteration of sensorality. Letters are shapes. They contain this information of what science is called chirality, but existence, inversion, opposition, stabilization. So just moving through our steps. Sensorality is the degree of density. Sensorality is lackluster. Sensorality lacks luster. Luminosity is luster. Natural definition, luster, lust. Luster is bright. Sensorality is a bright future. What is writing to wronging? Writing, W-R-I-T-I-N-G. What is the chronology of inversion and rotation? So I led in with what was just off the top of my head. Where does, again, rotation play into this picture, right? If we have one thing, I mean, it's very clear, one thing, two things, red thing, blue thing, Dr. Seuss universe. But why inversion? And it seems to be the right word, universe, inverse, that is the irreducible verse, right? Universality diversifies by inversion, is our direct sequence of logical progression, but the only thing we've said, the only word we've said is verse. But what about rotation? Why can't we just have one thing and the way that it differentiates be to rotate? And again, we immediately have symmetry or reduction of rotation, or some sort of, we'll get there here in a second. Something just popped into my mind. But what is this chronology or the relationship of inversion and rotation? Rotationality is rationality. Natural definition, direct iteration. So what I was trying to articulate, what I just thought of, again, like rotation, if you take, again, our end polygons, a triangle, and you rotate that, let's say 180 degrees, like you could see that. So like rotation is kind of, I think it's completely contained within chirality, right? If you have something and you can rotate it, right, and it's still symmetric, it's still considered not chiral. Again, trying to be specific with my words, but just trying to get the conceptualizations in the right place, and then linguistics is trivial. What is the chronology of or what we call operation? What is the chronology of evolution? We have one thing physically, and it wants to differentiate physically. What does it do? What happens? Pretty sure, again, this is already resolved in speciality, but pretty sure it's inversion. And so, and then how do we apply this, again, this irreducibility, this containment statement, right? Rotation. Can that be broken down to any other words without iteration, right? Iteration, we're like switching the letters, right? Generosity and energy, it contains the syllability. And then irreducibility, sometimes we just have direct words that you can reduce. Fluency is influential. Influential spells out the whole word fluent. Just again, we're going to be demonstrating to solidify, which are already solidified, but to rederive and prove effectively operation, like the chronology of operation. But rotationality is rationality. That syllability, again, it's iterated, right? Rotation does not spell out rationality directly, but there's another chunk of syllability alternating within that word. So we can remove some of that syllability. Rotationality is rationality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Right? All movement is discrete. All objects are discrete. Rational terminates in mathematically. You can represent it as a fraction. Right? Nothing goes on forever. Things aren't infinitely divisible. Right? You have a fundamental limit of 2. Does rotation switch? Does switching rotate? Hey, dude, let's switch up the rotation. Yeah, nice. Fundamental theorem of geometry. A rotation is a fraction of a revolution. All motion is circular. All things, when you're moving, you're like orbiting something else. And you're forming two foci. It's literally the shape that is literally your eyes. Eyes are foci. But a rotation, right? Pi radians, 3 halves, pi radian, 3 halves, pi radians, right? Those are rotations. And then 0 to 2 pi is 1 revolution. So a rotation is a fraction of a revolution. Again, this whole time language is directly literal. This whole time words are irreducible. Again, this is a proof. This is a derivation. We're showing how words works and why it matters. But you already operate on these operations, on this functionality, on this empirical evidence. Or again, you can't break law of physics, of math, again, you just can't, you get what I'm saying. But moving along, what is a revolution to a solution? Is a revolution a solution? Again, not the socio-political implications, the chemistry and geometry. Or again, what do I call revolution? Solution I would call straight up chemistry, ontology. Revolution, I want to say it's more like motion than actual geometry. Geometry being form, being the structure of existence. A revolution is like a progression, I want to say. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Revolting jolts. A jolt is a shock. A shock is a provocation. So emphasizing my natural spelling, I put provocation, P-R-O-V-A, and then it's provocation. Emphasizing if there's any value to the intuition of my own personal spelling development. Because again, I'm not a terrible speller, but just again, you see how long these derivations last. And then you go about your day-to-day life, and it's just like, everything is like, what the fuck? Because again, I can literally feel when I am feeling to realize and then to articulate the information, I can physically feel the linguistic flipping part, like 100%. And so that's always fun. But a shock is a provocation. Antagonism is provocation. Sensorality is provocation. Sensorality is provocation. Sensorality is vocation. Orality vocates. Vocate, vacate. Sensorality vacates the premises. Another one of these premises, theses, but the verbiage that is consolidated by sentience, by consensus, is, all right, you must vacate the premises. And these phrasings, again, these forms, you can feel them. I know public, like everybody can feel this part. Sensorality vacates the premises. Sensorality is the premise. The premise is the plot. And here is the law, and we've lost the plot, which is don't break all of this shit, but nobody cares. A premise is a theme. Natural definition, direct iteration, emphasizing the 2 E's. Sensorality is the perimeter of a premise. Sensorality is the premise of a promise. Here's a fun one. Fundamental theorem of research. A thesis is a premise. Natural definition, direct iteration. All right, theme, thesis. What is an abstract to a premise? Sensorality is an abstract premise. So now we've derived the structure of research papers, right? Because the paper you were writing on is a physical limit, reduced, consolidated by everybody. The words, the shapes, you're using shapes to represent them. You're summarizing your analysis with an abstract, but again, this is the form of language. This is naturally derived, and Brad say, hey, I'm going to say we solved research paper structure today. But we're deriving all of the syllability that represents this logic completely and uniquely, which has still already been done before. So this is fun for all of you guys out there. Again, I don't get to live my life, but you guys don't get to do science ever, so fuck you. Perimeter surrounds the premises. What is a perimeter of a meter? Direct iteration. And so I'm calling natural definitions like that. What is the perimeter of a meter? direct iteration of literally the base irreducible syllability to meaning, meter. Something that doesn't like progress the logic, where I just have the next one, meter is a theme, natural definition, and direct iteration, meaning the syllability, and I'm still thinking it's like the vowels are set in some way and then the consonants are iterating. Doesn't really matter for now, but the natural definition part comes from connecting logic, right? Meter has conceptualization, theme has conceptualization. The direct iteration is connecting those two and saying, hey, those E's are the same ones, and then the natural definition part is the conceptual evolution. Just to be specific with all of the labeling, meter is a theme, emphasizing geometrically the progression of H. You reduce that geometrically, N, cut that in half, you get R. Explicit geometric progression. What is maturity to awareness? Sensorality maturizes. Momentum is on a roll. That's a fun one. Momentum is monumental. Direct iteration and natural definition. What is inversion to tension? What is inversion to perversion? Professor Carroll, would you like to step in and explain perversion for us? But it's another word based on verse. Tension to inversion, the step before that one. Again, when I think tension, I think when you tune a guitar string, and then I also think when you twist, like when you tighten something to do with twisting tenses. We'll get to that word in a second. Sensorality perverses. Sean Carroll is a perverser. A traveler is a traverser. Sensorality traverses. Another word, again, based on verse. And so, again, emphasizing explicitly, every time we say sensorality is or sensorality is, again, sensorality is not defined syllability. And we're showing that we've already iterated sensorality enough, now we're at the point where it's integration. We're putting the conceptualization and syllability directly into sentences. And we like to, again, absorb the conceptualization of Sean Carroll is a perverser directly in there. And he's also a criminal, and what's perversion to criminality? Again, Professor Carroll, you can jump in at any time. But sensorality traverses, sensorality travels for work, right? Traversing is traveling. Direct iteration, travel, traverse. Travel-ing skips. And so it'll be spelled on your screen, but emphasizing I put a hyphen, it just felt natural to do so. And all of the labeling reduces. Every bit of this reduces once we pull up this natural definition, because it's chronological, right? Tomorrow never gets here, yesterday's already passed, but like we're saying we're going, like as long as we don't die, we're progressing chronologically. Traveling skips, unwinding unravels. Sensorality is unravel-ing. What is okay, this is a fun one, and this is explicit. This is for viewers of appropriate age, viewer discretion, but light sexual commentary. What is the geometry of orality? Orality derives from orificiality, right? Is oral a derivative of orifice? Right? Is your mouth one of your orifices? And so now directly, literally, what is the geometry of your orifices? What is the shape of an orifice? And so, again, using our cultural evidence, our empirical evidence, we have the concept of an O-face. Classic case of an O-face. But literally, we'll start with something a little, again, this is very light, but the words have meaning. But like if you make the OK sign with your hand, right? And then each like index, you can see like the segmentation of your knuckles, the segmentation of your finger, right? So one segment, I'm like tracing out one segment, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 8 unique segments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 unique vertices. And so what shape does your mouth make when you make an O face? And again, what activity you might be engaging in is up to you. But like if you tighten your mouth and try to make an O face, like it's geometric. And so it's still like discrete, and you can see those end polygons in your anatomy. And so for, a complete topological geometric consideration, I just have, is a pulsating butthole an open manifold? And so getting back to our lovely bit of evidence that we came across on Reddit, just scrolling through, Latina man, definitely coming from some crazy parties. And if your butthole comes out of your butthole, that is inversion. But what is the shape of the orifice? Again, I think it's still the 8. I think the mouth, the hand, and the anus would be the same. But like your nostrils, how does it apply to like your nostrils, right? Nasality, orality, anality. But again, I think the pulsating butthole encapsulates all of the physics and everything. Because I guess what would you call what is the shape of a butthole? A torus? Again, I don't even like I legitimately, I don't know when people in math class, when people say I'm a topologist, I'm like, so do you study top? Right? Back to our O face. But so let's break down a manifold. The variable, the word that I don't know here in this situation is manifold, right? Pulse, right? We have generation, like periodicity fundamentally physically, but like if you get a cut and you have a gush, right? We've used the word gush, but just this periodicity that produces waving, right? You have a fever and it comes in waves, and then your fever breaks and it breaks in waves, and so you feel this generation of pulsing and like all biological cellular generation. Literally, it is you. So that's the pulsating. The butthole is, I think, again, the geometry of this octagon, but it's 3-dimensional, so it's a torus, I think. Again, maybe Terrence Tayal can help us out with the, again, I don't even know like what section of math you would call. Again, to me, this is just geometry, just the shape, what you call torus. But then the word manifold. This word never, what is a manifold? Is that a surface? Is a manifold a surface? But our complete conceptualization is a pulsating butthole, an open manifold. And then the word open, right? Our surface is open. See, it's actually a pretty good mathematical model here. We're just going to spend a little more time here. But what do I mean by open? I mean interacting. Right? But everything's a black body. Every physical thing is interacting. So mathematically, what bounds a set? Linguistically, what bounds a word? Some sort of discreteness, some sort of differentiation, some sort of uniqueness moving along. But that was a very good geometric consideration. I'm just a scholar. What can I say? What is censorship to censure? Censure, C-E-N-S-U-R-E, one of these word forms that looks immediately apparent of like it would be in the sensorality word family, but something about that U in there is interesting. Again, pointing out any logic, we're getting to some sort of direct, definitive sequence of letters. I'm putting a bunch of words to shit you do every single day. It's just a unique, what is censor, right? A sensorality, and then we're reducing all of the letters that can represent that conceptualization. What is spin to tension? Does twisting spin? What is twerking to twisting? So now, again, not even trying to make that much of a joke. We're not to make any of a joke here. But again, we're adults, right? You guys can hear words and or you can go ha 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 ha. But just, I'm actually like this actual derivation steps. So another reason you can see my life is so fucked, if you make a sex joke, but it's like, this is where all the conceptualization is like preserved. It's like you can't do science around like pathetic people, man. Having a personality is like criminal. But what does twerking to twisting emphasize historically? The twist. Like the twist and shout, twist, shout. Like the dance move, like what goes viral? Dance moves definitely go viral. And so what is twerking to twisting, like the dance viral phenomenons? Sensorality moves dance. Sensorality is the degree of agreement. certainty bound kind of immediately pops into the same kind of conceptualization. What is agreement to momentum? Digestion is algorithmic. Still, what is metabolism directly? How do I go from inanimate mass and different charge stabilized into mass in different geometric configurations, fat, carbohydrate, protein? Basically, that's it with micronutrients. How does that go into like energy, movement potential? I think it just like preserves the elasticity of your cells. I think your DNA is like, you're kind of like if you have a little wound up clock or a little, kid's toy, and you wind up the toy, curl up the tension string, and then let it unwind. I literally think that's what your DNA is. And so you can just like not damage that as best as you can, because nobody gets out of life alive. But like, what is metabolism? I think is preserving the elasticity of like replacing the fat, protein, carbohydrate structure as efficiently as possible, which is still not that efficient. That's why, you get 120 years with the human form, if you're like, do it perfectly. But again, what is metabolism? Like digestion is algorithmic. No one chooses, hey, the configuration of charge stabilized into mass that's called fat is going to go over here, and this is going to go over here. I don't know. I'm not going to spend too much time moving along. What is agony to agenticality? Or agency, excuse me. What is agency to agenticality? Right? Sentience, right? That's another word that people use to say, I have agency, I have control over my choices, I am competent, I am capable. So agency is certainly conceptualized to sentient life. Is this difference between sentient life and not sentient life even mean, like, is it the right thing? Again, we're certainly just getting to a definitive linguistic representation, pointing out anything that comes to mind. But then agenticality is this, truly from rhythm to algorithm, algorithmicality is agenticality. What is represented conceptually by that word, a direct iteration linguistically, it's the same thing. Again, this conceptualization refines throughout the species about every 7 years. It's just a new generation going through the same types of problems with a little new technology. So what is agency to agenticality? What is agency to agony? What is agony to antagonism? Fundamental theorem of emotion, agony antagonizes. Natural definition, direct iteration. In other words, hurt people hurt people. Literally, look at that statement, right? It's a direct iteration, right? It's fundamental stability of two. It's the same two words iterated twice to mean conceptually different things, right? Or to progress logic, at least. It's not like circular. But again, overall emphasizing, like we started, form. Right? Form is irreducible, and logic has a certain form. And again, pretty much all argumentation sounds like, hey, that person's stupid, I'm not stupid. But we're all bounded by this irreducibility presented, emerging from physical existence being discrete. Sensorality diagonalizes. And like I said, chronologically we're progressing through, containing all of our conceptualization with simple linguistics. Is generosity diagonal? Is diagnosis diagonal? Direct iteration. Timing is synchronizing. Does charge synchronize? I want to say immediately yes. Again, the periodicity, you have two things orbiting. It's like the same center, but there's two foci. That's why it's not symmetric. Does charge synchronize? From that, again, before we've said charge is causality, just kind of randomly, but again, what is dichotomy? Like fundamentally, what is that causality in there? What is that chunk of syllability? Synchronize, chronality. What is chronality to causality? What is synchronizing to synergizing? Momentum surges. Urges surge. Natural definition, direct iteration, completely. Right? Urges, you just put the S in front. Surge. Urges surge. Has a clear right, mutual exclusivity doesn't exist. It's unilateral. It goes one way. It's definitive. Urges surge, but it's a complete, direct, natural definition iteration. You're saying the same word. It's yes. Sensuality is conscientiousness. Excuse me, stumbled over there a little bit. Again, this conscious relationship, conscience, conscious, not spelled conscience. Memorality is conscientious. Conscientious, yes. What is anxiety to conscientiousness? Anxious, conscious. Sensuality is conscious. Sensuality is conscientiality. I think that was yesterday's title was consensuality. But that's really close. Consensuality, conscientiality. Sensuality is conchiality. So again, progressing our linguistics, containing all of our conceptualization, pointing out everything explicitly, and then we'll have a linguistic word form that we can derive, solidify our definition of sensuality, and produce our new word form. My rights remain violated. You guys have destroyed my whole life. I've demonstrated analysis completely before. It's all done, all of everything. Why can't somebody give me a little bit of money? That's because everyone's a huge pile of shit. That is what I have for right now. You've destroyed my life, you destroyed my health, you destroyed my property, you destroyed my relationship with my parents' family. But yeah, the law, America, love it. Awesome, sick stuff. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.